Okay. Hi, this is Pat Gahn, manager of the Ubuntu Server and OpenStack team, here today um, to talk about um, making the Ubuntu Server release even more awesome than it already is, which I'm totally biased, but I believe it's already pretty damn awesome. But so this is part of the Ubuntu Developer Summit that's going on right now. This is June 2014. So today we have a few topics to talk about. I'm not expecting this to be a really long session, but we'll see. If you have questions or comments, put them on IRC and we'll try to keep an eye on them. So, you know, one of the things I wanted to quickly touch base on is an SSD caching solution. So this is something that we've been investigating, trying to make sure we have, I think, what is have the most solid solution available. So the people that run the canonical infrastructure for Canonical, they actually investigated the different solutions and etc. And the one where we've agreed on is vCache. So in 14.10 we'll add, I think we're just adding vCache to Universe is the plan.
That's the current plan, yeah. So I need to do some investigation to see what kernel options are turned on for vCache at the moment.
I think, yeah.
I think they might be on already. And get vCache tools packaged up. So there's a Debian ITP involved, and I've got involved with that. So I'm going to be helping Debian land vCache tools, possibly with James's help for some sponsorship.
Yeah, I've volunteered to sponsor that if it needs a sponsor. So.
Yeah, and I think I'm trying to look back through my notes. I think one of the reasons this solution was picked over others. It was the most. I think it was more stable than others, but I think weren't there some concerns around potential. Let me see. I'm sorry, guys. Around corruption.
Okay. So there was some. I think vCache. If most of the caching solutions are okay with ext-based file systems, if you try and use XFS or ButterFS, they're not so great. I think that was the summary that James came up with in the end. So.
Okay, cool. All right. So I think there's not a lot more to say on that one. And I should just clarify what this session's about. This is kind of our general server session. We have a blueprint, which is it's called for this release for Utopic, it's the server cloud-u-server core. It's kind of our, I guess you could say, our catch-all for things that don't fit under another specific project. So, definitely, if there are suggestions on things we could do even better, specific packages we should look at, let us know. But even though I gave it kind of a silly title, but really this is meant to cover kind of general server topics. So then the next thing, so Robbie, we have the merge reports that tell us which packages we need to update. But I know that you've made some. I think you can, one, better describe that, and two, I know you've made some improvements to that, the merge report. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I'll just paste the URL to this. There is a merge report that's automatically generated. This is a script that Davey wrote, which is, I think, specifically what we're doing for what he did for server. There's also the merge-o-matic output, so we've got really two sources of this.
And they're telling us about what we need to merge from Debian, what
yeah,
packages
so
need.
It tells us which packages are ahead of Ubuntu and Debian. I think it just tells us all of them, actually. But of course, the ones that auto-sync will disappear from the merge report from Davey's one pretty quickly, except when we're in a freeze. So really what it is doing is it's telling us what we need to merge. Now, I got Davey's script working again a couple of releases ago, maybe for Trustee, I can't remember. But the catch here is that it's telling us a ton of stuff about packages which we've possibly looked at and decided that there's no justification to need to do a merge right now, or also for lower priority packages or ones that that we might well be ahead of Debian for, but technically the version number's behind. So it didn't seem to be particularly useful for me to be able to look at and understand what work is actually outstanding, because it would cover a load of things that actually don't need any work anyway. So
right,
what I
and you
tried
have to go through that each time, and you have
yeah,
to kind of reevaluate. You're like, this one sounds familiar. I'm not interested, but I want to check for sure. Okay.
yeah, exactly. So what I wanted to try and do, and I tried to do this, I think I've done it once now, and I is study the entire list, go through every single package that appears, figure out what the priorities are, and then come up with a list of packages that we actually want to merge. And what I did last time was I emailed that to the Ubuntu Server list. And then what I'd like to do from that response and that merge results of that, what I'm calling a merge report as opposed to the automated one, is to then look at the really high priority items that our users really care about and make sure that those get done either by assigning work items or filing bugs or something like that. So these are the packages that I think are far more user-facing. So for example, we moved from Apache 2.2 to 2.4 at some point. I think that was in Saucy. Well, I think our users maybe want features that are in Apache 2.4. It's something that they actually notice the version number about. On the other hand, there are other packages which are sort of just deep inside the dependency tree, which users don't necessarily aren't going to. There's going to be a smaller proportion of users who care about those packages, and so I think it's fair to spend a smaller proportion of our resource and time in working on doing those merges. So really what I wanted to do was prioritize by producing this report. So for me, this is really just a to-do item. I intend to do this once in the early part of the cycle, so that we can cover any major mergers that we need to do, any major version bumps that are going to cause potentially more disruption to the development release. And I would like to do a late cycle merge report, really just to cover the last few kind of bug fix sort of updates that will come through.
So Robbie, I thought one of the things that you were talking about doing with regards to the merge reports was, because not all packages are ones that we pull forward from Debian. There are some packages that are, we get elsewhere. And I thought you were hoping to extend the merge report, so you were actually kind of checking against the community version of the packages. Or did I misunderstand that?
So what I wanted to do was add to this some kind of source data, which I might put in a bizarre branch or something like that, which basically describes known source packages and stuff that we know about them. So for example, I might say for this particular source package, don't worry about the Debian version, just compare against the watch file and the upstream version. And then I was thinking of amending the automatically generated report to produce that information, so we'll be able to more easily see when we're behind.
So is that something you're hoping to actually do this cycle, or it's just kind of out there as something you're thinking about doing at some point?
Yeah, it's sort of on my long-term to-do. I don't know if I'm going to get to it this cycle, because for me it's a fairly low priority to adjust the merge report, the automated one. But it is on my to-do to provide a kind of hand-curated report to the Ubuntu server list twice every cycle. So I'll make sure I get that done. And then I'm hoping that over time I'll be able to improve the quality of that by adjusting the automated reports.
So James or Scott, do you agree with that kind of getting to the point of being able to see the version of our packages versus what's in the community is low priority, or do you see value in getting to that point? Being able to do that, is it something that would be beneficial to us to be able to do in the short term?
I would put it lower priority than in Debian. From Debian, you can see this on the Debian. Oh no, you can't. I'd put it lower priority than Debian. I'm fine with that. Just because for packages that people are interested in, largely that kind of is already done. Or we're already tracking that sort of stuff. We already know.
Okay.
Right. So on the whole, the packages that we care about are better cared for, and so
that's true.
Okay. Yeah.
Really, I'm just trying to avoid
What were
things
you going to
slipping
ask,
through.
Scott?
I'm guessing I probably missed. You probably just said this, and I probably missed it. It's the UScan data. We do have that in a readable format somewhere, right? If a package has the Debian, gosh, whatever watch file, then we
Yeah,
have that.
where do we have that? I don't know about that. But yeah, I'd love to use that data.
I've seen that somewhere before. I know I have.
Okay, work out in for Scott. Find me the UScan. But
Yeah.
I mean, if not, I was just going to run UScan. Didn't think that would be that big a
Right.
deal.
All right. Okay, cool. So that does remind me. I think that last week, I think, or was it beginning of this week? I think Docker's 1.0 now, right? So we're gonna.
That's right. It's been announced as one.
Yeah,
So-
this week, yeah.
So we're going to, I think what we had talked about as a team was that we would update the version of Docker that's in Universe to 1.0 when 1.0 came out. So it's there. So.
I expect that will just sync through from Debian when it appears there.
Okay.
'Cause we've been in sync with them for the whole of last cycle and this cycle so far. So as soon as Paul uploads it in Debian, it should just magically appear. I don't want to jump ahead of them. I don't think it will.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right.
So the only thing that I've been asked by several people is about the name of the Docker binary and package. So the Docker binary is already owned by something else, and according to Debian policy, you can't just steal it because it's not doing the same thing. So you can't do conflicts or alternatives or whatever. So at the moment, the Debian and Ubuntu provided package binary is called docker.io, and the upstream packages it's called Docker. So if you follow any tutorial, you end up having to retype all the commands to make it work for Debian. So we had the same thing with Node. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but the binary name Node was taken by some bit of ham radio software, and Node.js also wanted it. And in the end, they were both told that neither could have it, and they had to do something different. So, but they have like a Node.js legacy package which provides the Node link to Node.js, and I wonder whether we should do something similar for Docker. So have like LXC Docker in Ubuntu that provides a link and conflicts with whatever provides Docker now, so that people can install something that gives them the same experience as they get from upstream. Anybody got any opinions on that?
So I just found a Debian bug on that and I pasted it to the IRC channel. It was only filed last month, and there's no responses yet. It seems like it's a fairly simple thing to do. I mean, I'd really like to hear what Debian thinks about it, but it sounds like it's not an area where there would be much of an issue between Debian and Ubuntu, even if Ubuntu decided to do it, because it's just a separate package that provides a thing that the Docker package isn't refusing to provide anyway, if that's what Debian decide to do. So it doesn't seem to be much of an issue in providing that as a package in Ubuntu.
I don't think there's too much of a problem, but I don't know where that's gone. I might ping Paul and see what he's doing about it, because maybe it's just not having the updates on the bug, but he's working on getting that resolved. So.
So are there any other packages that the community, that our consumers would want to hear, or that we're moving forward? I know we have a database session tomorrow.
So I had one thing on Docker.
Oh yes, sorry, Robbie. Yeah.
Docker 1.0 untrusty. Because
Buy back Paul.
yeah, because people want it, right? I think.
Yeah.
So we should do it.
We might get away with the universe update to push it through to 1.0 as a statement. I don't think anybody would actually object to that. So.
We could do, although I mean people might object on the basis that backports is the right venue, and I know Scott has opinions about that.
Well, yeah, we're going to talk about that in a.
My opinion, the update to 1.0 is that you can do that. That's fine, but pushing it. If you did that as a universe update, then my feeling would be you were kind of committing to doing that at some level indefinitely, right? Because 3 months from now, 1.0 will be seen as completely out of date, and then you just have the same problem. So I would say don't do it that way just because of that.
So that sounds to me that Scott is in favor of backports.
I think that in that case it's an arbitrary update. Yes, it's named 1.0, but it's quite arbitrary.
So I think this is one of those areas where it's wider than just Docker. I think that there is a general kind of feeling that the LTS is great, but why can't I have the latest thing of my thing in LTS? And the only solution we have for that is backports. And I think it's. I think I've heard Scott say it's broken, but it works well enough for Leaf packages.
Yes.
I think. So.
Scott, do you agree or disagree with that statement?
I don't know. I think that I don't consider it a terribly useful thing, because you have this thing that is Ubuntu that has stable release updates policy on it, that has all this in place to keep people stable, and then you say, oh, well, I want new stuff, and that stuff doesn't go through any sort of testing or any promises, or it's a much different
so
policy.
Backports comes with that label, though, doesn't it?
Yes, but why would I want that is the only...
Because people want different things from different packages. There are some packages where people really care about having the latest version. I mean, we're facing that with Juju and Maz today, and I think Docker is another example of this.
I'm fine to say that. I think it's... I don't know. I just don't think that... I don't personally think that one repository fixes all of that. I think you need to teach people how to arbitrarily have other, pull their sources in from other places.
Okay.
So you're saying
and that's true.
via PPAs, etc.? Is that what?
I think for a lot of things, PPAs are fine, and like if Docker maintained their own PPA or their own apt repository, then that would be the way that you should consume that.
And that's where a lot of people consume it from. So Docker do have upstream repositories containing LXC Docker, which is their package name. So.
Okay, in that case, why do we have Docker in Universal?
Because someone packaged it in Debian, synced through, no one dropped it. There you go.
I mean, to me, it's sort of like there should be one single recommended way of consuming this stuff. And to have two just means that people say, well, never. The people start hating on the Ubuntu archive because it's old, which sort of is by definition by release. But then for pieces of software which are kind of cutting edge and they're changing all the time, and no one really is realistically is ever going to use a version more than 3 months old, it makes no sense to have it in the LTS. It should just not enter the repository until until that time.
I guess what we have is really a broader question here of, and I know that this has come up in other venues, including like ARM v8 support. As that becomes more featureful, is for Trusty, for the LTS release, how do we get the new versions of packages to customers?
Charms. Honestly, that's Canonical's answer to that. It's delivered via Charms.
Is Charms where and then where it comes from could be a PPA, it could be something else. It's not we're not making a recommendation on where to.
Right. As far as the hating on Ubuntu for having an old package goes, if backports is the solution, and all of a sudden we have a newer package in backports. If I had to choose between someone hating on Ubuntu for being stable and unmoving, or breaking my stuff that was working, I'd pick hate on me for stable, rather than hate on me because I broke your working thing. And I see backports as a path to breaking people's working environments.
Well, I think at least for
they
me,
choose to install packages from backports, though, don't they? So they get to be giving them that choice. All I'm saying is that there seem to be multiple sources of getting a package, and some of them don't make sense for some packages. Yet we continue to ship them as if they're supported and available. And I know that Universe is technically not supported, but we're still putting it there. Andy on IRC asks, isn't that what the Cloud Archive style thing is for?
No.
The Cloud Archive is specifically for OpenStack. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think at least, and Andy, you should maybe join us. I think that the Cloud Archive is specifically for OpenStack, but I do think that's kind of applying Cloud Archive in a more general way, like Cloud Tools Next or Cloud Tools or something.
Essentially, Cloud Archive is the well-known source of up-to-date packages for OpenStack on Ubuntu. And it became well-known because the maintainers of that said so. And that general policy can be done, can be had for any package at any time without entry into backports.
So based on your guys,
I don't know.
So based on your experience, you guys with Precise, is this really a problem? Is this something that is on our customers' minds that we need to do better, would help us be more awesome with Trusty? Do we need to do...
So I get the impression, let's say for example Docker, right? People who use Ubuntu are used to the fact that they can do apt-get install something, right? And if you look at, I've not looked at Docker's upstream instructions on how to get things going on Ubuntu specifically, but I've seen the same sort of thing for many other upstream projects, where pretty much in big letters at the top of the instructions, they have to say, in big letters, do not use apt-get install from the Ubuntu archive. That version is old. You must follow these instructions instead. And the reason that they're having to put it in big letters is because presumably people are doing it and then going to that community and saying, why isn't it working? Why is it so out of date? And they're getting fed up of it, frankly, I presume. So it seems like a better idea just to not, I mean, if nobody's using it and it's not recommended, then it seems like a better idea not to have it at all. And point people to the right source. And to have a policy of, this isn't ready yet because we don't think it's going to be, anyone is going to want to use it within 6 months of a 5-year LTS release. So we suggest that you get it from this source as well, and we're not shipping it yet as part of Ubuntu. Like in a fully recommended way, we're pointing to the upstream. So it's not that we're rejecting them, we want them to integrate with us, but realistically we're causing more of a problem by putting it into the archive than we're providing part of a solution.
So, I think that's a very good statement, a very good point. So how would you say that, how could we recommend external to Ubuntu installation mechanisms? Nothing.
I think Robbie just froze.
Maybe we need to do something with command not found. I don't know. I can't really think of. I mean, basically, how do people get instructions on how to install something when they try and apt-get install and it doesn't work? They go to the upstream project, really, don't they, and look for the Ubuntu installation instructions for that project. So I'm not sure that we're in the right place to give them a better solution. The better solution is already available and it's being done outside of the Ubuntu project. So all we can do is maybe put in the release notes, these are the specific things that, I mean, I don't want it to make this sound bad, but effectively what I'm saying is blacklist these source packages, right? But in the best possible way, in the nicest way, by saying, look, this is not useful for users. We've blacklisted it because we think it's better for you to get it from the upstream sources. Here are what we've blacklisted, and here are the upstream sources with better instructions to follow, or something like that. Another one that comes to mind is Bitcoin. Probably not very relevant for Ubuntu Server, but I think it illustrates very well what the issue is. I mean, Bitcoin is being blacklisted because it causes major issues if people are running an ancient version, and basically it's unusable because it's network connected. And that's an example of where upstream have specifically asked it not to be in SID and not to be in Ubuntu at all. It's in Debian experimental only. I think it might be in SID, but not be promoted to testing or something like that. The idea is that it doesn't make a Debian release, and that it doesn't make an Ubuntu release because it's out of date within a month or two of release. And so the same thing applies to Docker and any other kind of emerging technology, where we do want it to be a first-class citizen in Ubuntu, but it's not practical to distribute it via the archive as we typically do it.
So Chuck, I think you have 2 cents on this.
So,
I've seen you unmute a couple times.
a long time ago, we had the Ubuntu Server dailies packages stuff that was automated, and I think this would be a good place to have things like Docker and stuff like that, because people will want to use packages because they don't want to compile everything from source, and they want to deal with like things like Go and stuff like that.
So what was that called again, Chuck?
It's the Ubuntu Server dailies project thing.
So why did we stop?
Because no one was using it.
So that I guess that goes back to my earlier question, is based on your experience with early LTS releases, is this really a problem? And if you say no one was using it, that makes me wonder.
It's people want a stable base, but they want the latest stuff.
Yeah,
So we need to find a balance of offering the latest stuff and using a stable base of an LTS.
So I think the upstreams are providing that latest stuff, and they're providing package repositories. So I would say integrate with them better, work with them better. So rather than trying to duplicate their effort by creating a package repository that I'm not sure that many people are going to use, we just point to them and say they're maintaining this repository for these pieces.
I think honestly that I think honestly that seems the most reasonable thing. Especially if it's by request of the upstream to not be packaged, we should probably not package things that upstream ask us not to package.
Well, I think we've made that. At least I thought we made that decision. Like, for example, I think was it Cassandra?
Yeah.
Where, I think the model and they don't. Was that it, James? Were you shaking your head no?
Well, there were two issues there. One was upstream appetite to work with a distro on packaging, and 2 was the complexity. That Cassandra is a Java-based app, so it's harder, a lot harder in terms of the packaging effort.
Right, but I think they were also okay with where you get Cassandra from is from them.
Yeah, they provide their own packages, so. But I think there's a difference between. Okay, so Cassandra is an example, MongoDB is an example where there are good upstream sources of binary packages that you can use if you're going to deploy those things on Ubuntu using Juju, so we can expose those third-party sources in a very consumable way via the Charm store. Docker, I think, is different, because Docker, okay, it might be something you run on the set, but it might also be something you run on your desktop or laptop. So exposing that via a Charm doesn't really, well, it does make sense in some use cases, but for the guy who wants to use it on his laptop, that becomes harder. And I think that's where the kind of command block bound or something is better, if we're not going to ship that package at all.
Okay, so Robbie, I guess what's the conclusion here?
So I don't know. I kind of wish some of the upstreams were here. So I think that the proposal that I have is one option, but it's not one that we necessarily are all committed to doing. But to me, it's a clear option of specifically what to do, which is to have a list of source packages which we are proposing to blacklist such that they do not enter a release. So they're either always stock and proposed, or they never enter proposed, and they never sync from Debian. And we communicate with upstreams. So I would only suggest doing this by approaching upstreams and making sure that they understand the reasons and so on. My suspicion is that they would be okay with that, and they would be happy with that. In terms of, so that's really my proposal, is really a blacklist of packages not to sync. There's a secondary point to this, which is how do we advise users and where to go. Command not found is one thing, but I'm not really sure. I mean, people apt-get install something. We kind of need a apt install not found mechanism. But I'm not sure we have that, or whether that's practical. So I don't have a solution to that part of things. I'm not sure we have any other solid proposals on what to do. So I'm not sure that that means that we can act right now.
Well, so I would say it sounds to me like the next step is to take this to the Ubuntu Server mailing list and talk about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Further and see if the other people have thoughts, or if we can go anywhere. I am a little concerned with the earlier comment about, maybe, should we even put packages in universe? I don't know. But, yeah. Yes.
I think we just have to be really careful, because, we're sitting here as the server team, and people in Debian are putting effort into packaging that they think is important for Debian, that they know that Ubuntu users can consume because it just syncs through as long as it's untouched. And I'm concerned we're kind of devaluing their effort. That's my own take.
Yeah, we need to involve them in this conversation.
Definitely.
So,
okay, yeah.
We've been talking about Docker quite a bit. In actual fact, one of the guys who's been working on the Docker packaging works for Docker.net or whatever they are, but he's an upstream guy. So Docker obviously think that having their package in Debian is important. There are obviously challenges around that still. So I don't know. It worries me when we say blacklist package, because we think the upstream source is best, and that inhibits some sort of community contribution.
So the way I see it, there are really two alternatives. One is to go all the way, and somebody needs to maintain backports packages for Docker for the previous LTS, because that's the way I think people want to be able to consume it. They want the latest stuff. Backports is the way that we deliver that latest stuff. Or we need to go completely the other way and point to the upstream and not ship the package. It's the middle ground of doing the release and then leaving it alone and not updating it in any way and not providing updates to any way that I think is kind of pointless.
And the
I'm interested
specific
to see what
challenges around the LTS. Is the specific challenges around the LTS?
Yeah, because the 6 monthly releases are only ever 6 months old, so they're not that bad. I don't think people will object so much. In the case of Docker, it's possibly so new that having a 3-month-old release is too old, right? But that's a temporary problem, and it's going to go away as things settle. But the LTS thing, I think, is bigger, because 2 years is always going to be too long in technology.
You also have a order of magnitude difference in adoption of those releases. So
yeah,
if it's too old, it's only too old for 10% of the users or whatever in the intermediate releases.
Well, to be fair, the James's use case of people using it on their laptop, they're probably more. It's a server thing, but it's going to be consumed a ton on the desktop, and desktop users are maybe a little bit more likely to have the 6 monthly release.
So, do you think? Is it with backports? Is it clear? Do people know how to get stuff from backports?
On desktops, backports is definitely installed by default. So I think you just do apt-get install docker.io/whatever -backports. I think so. Trusty -backports, and that would work by default if Docker were in backports, but of course it's not.
And G Quigs on IRC asks, should there be a Firefox like exception for Docker? That's the MRE, right?
Yeah, actually, Andy asked me earlier on IC, it should have an MRE, and I said, an MRE is a micro-release exception. I said, well, it's a major version bump that we want to do to Docker and can
But I think
continue to be doing.
Firefox may be,
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
Firefox is more of a major release.
Yeah, Firefox does have a major release exception, mainly because we didn't really have any choice as to the way that Firefox upstream works. So yeah, I guess we could.
For that specific package, it may be appropriate to do a major release exception.
One catch about that is that there is additional effort needed to make sure to keep that thing up to date. But the same applies to backports for that matter, I suppose. Pointing to upstream is easy because they're doing it.
Yeah. So for the Docker, I think. So it sounds like we need some further discussion specifically around the Docker case, and I think there is that potential for having the MRE where this time it's major, not minor, and then potentially a broader discussion about the LTS. You know, how do people want to consume new package versions via backports? Yeah, and then we definitely should talk with the release team.
So what else do we have on the agenda? Ubuntu core streams data.
Yeah, so we kind of have the intent of producing simple streams data for Ubuntu core deliverables, and also then kind of getting those updated on a as necessary basis, but it's not a real big thing to anybody. The one consumer we expect would be that the Docker images are now being built or will be built soon from those Ubuntu core, and so they'll have an updated stream of information to consume them from.
Okay. So any other big packages we're going to be moving for a 1410? Any other like big? I know that we've got some plans to move to MySQL 5.6, and James, I think we've been talking about some moving to a newer version of Mongo. I think I don't know if there's anything else worth pointing out. James, are you talking or are you just moving your head?
I am talking, but I'm muted. So.
I can't quite. Your mouth was covered by the bar, so I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah. So we have been talking about MySQL Switch to 5.6 and a bump of MongoDB to the 2.6 release. But I haven't put any significant effort into driving that, and I think I probably should do so.
Yeah. Are there any other packages worth highlighting, you guys? Like I said, I think there's talks about Mongo, and I think part of that is support of ARM64.
Yeah. So we've been trying to get the version of libv8 lined up so that we can put in the ARM64 patches, which are in the 3.24 release of libv8.
I thought it was 3.25.
Oh God, I don't know. It's 3.20 something. It's a bumper release out every few weeks. That's quite frequent. The thing that blocks that right now, without introducing another libv8 version package, is that Node.js that is coming from Debian, which is the current stable, is tied to the 3.18 that we have in Utopic at the moment. So we can't bump it without introducing another libva package, which I'm reluctant to do. The next stable of Node.js should be out before utopic releases, and I believe that will ship with the latest libva. They're on a stream in their RCs. They're up to 324 at the moment. So it's possible they go 325, but if not, it might be an easier cherry pick than trying to get back to 318. So that's the kind of wait and see answer. But
Are there?
it's sufficiently complex. That's fair to say.
Yeah, but it's probably one we kind of. I know you sent notes on it. I think we probably need to figure it out not too late in this cycle. Are there any other major versions of packages?
No, well, there will be, but I'm trying to think what they might be. But a whole new version of OpenStack coming through, of course.
Of course. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We have a session.
That's another session.
OpenStack. You can't talk. You don't steal all of our topics from the other session.
You can talk about it here. So
Check. You're not on vacation, man. You're here, and you're not voting today. All right. Anything else? All right. Hey, so Robbie, do you have plans around UV Tool for this cycle? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Sorry, getting to mute button. Yes, I do. I'm hoping to do UVT LXC. I'm hoping to do some improvements around the UI for kind of the UX currently, so you won't have to type in 3 commands. You can just do it in one with a shortcut option. Those sorts of things are relatively trivial. UVT LXC is on my list. I'm a little bit concerned about the stuff that I have on and how I am getting along in my schedule at the moment as to how much of this I'll be able to get done by the end of the cycle.
Yeah, we've got to work on that.
Yeah, especially with feature freeze. So everything's got to be done before feature freeze for all the work in UVTool. So I don't know. I mean, if anyone's got any kind of critical need for UVTool, then I need to know now so I can prioritize those things.
Okay. And then Scott, anything worth noting from the curtain space?
No, not particularly. Curtain will have some improvements, but
Yeah, I think you've got a few things in the blueprint, but I don't think we're plotting anything substantial.
no, they're not driven at least by Ubuntu development. So.
Okay. Any other topics, you guys? General server helping make it more awesome. All right, you guys. Well, thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye.